when I passed around a sheet earlier this year about what you guys wanted to see, a number of people mentioned sharpening. So Alan is here to talk tonight about sharpening and a little bit about tool making, I believe.
Yeah, it all depends on time. Things flow.
So, without further ado, big round of applause.
Normally when I go to the grinder, at the very least I wear safety goggles. Preferably the kind that go all the way around your eyes, but they don't fit over my glasses very well, so I usually wear a face shield. And I like an 8-inch grinder, but I couldn't afford an 8-inch, so this is a 7-inch, but it's really not 7 if you want, because each wheel is worn out to like 6.5. And I like the Baldor because it doesn't vibrate much, but this is a $600 or $700 grinder now. When I bought it, it was $300 and something. And an 8-inch Baldor is almost $1,000, so I can't afford one of those. Woodcraft sells one that goes on sale every now and then for a little less than $100. Klingsport used to have a really nice one for about $100, but they don't carry it anymore. I guess something happened to your source. But you want a nice grinder, and preferably 7 to 8 inches would be good. A 10-inch one would be fine. If you get it too small, what happens is the hollow grind it puts on your gouge. It's just too much, and you can't really glide along on the bevel with it. And the other thing is you want to have all these safety things on. The nice thing about the Baldor is these little breakers, chip breakers or spark arresters are pretty thick, so if the wheel does blow up, hopefully some of the pieces will stay in the grinder and not come out and go through your head. So I always have all those parts on. Those little cheap $100 ones you get in Woodcraft. It's a little thin piece of sheet metal that's worthless pretty much. And you want to keep these about 1/4 inch or so above the wheel. You also want to get good quality wheels. These are the Norton 3X. And for a while they had a problem with balancing of them, but they're getting better now, I've been told. So I had to balance these a little bit. And a lot of little tricks to balancing the wheels. I'm not going to go into that because I could spend all day on tune up a grinder. Essentially you want to just go ahead and get good wheels. When you get a wheel, or if you think you have a problem with the wheel, take it off. Grab yourself one of your bowl gouges, put the wheel on the gouge and tap it. If it rings, it's fine. If it goes thump, it's got a crack. Just like in the old days when you pick up a wooden bat and tap it on the ground. If it doesn't ring, you know it's got a crack and you don't want to use it because it's going to split your hands. So if it rings, it's okay. Because I let students use my grinders, and when we have workshops, I let people, and occasionally somebody's going to run something into that wheel and put the big chunk out of it. In my mind, it's cheaper to spend another $100 on a wheel than to take the risk of having somebody get hurt and spend who knows how many thousands of dollars in the emergency room. $100 wheel is a whole lot cheaper. So if I have any question about the quality of my wheel, I get rid of it. And I'll wear these things down to about 5.5 inches and I'll get rid of them.
What grit do you have on this?
Right now I've got 46 grit for my rough grinding, and I've got an 80 grit wheel over here. My other grinder that's somewhere in Georgia or North Carolina down towards Brasstown where I left it at Southern States Conference, it's got a 80 grit wheel and a 100 grit wheel, and I have the white wheels. Well, one's white and one's blue. And when those wheels wear down, they're going to go onto this grinder. That way I can get better use out of it. And I don't really use these little plastic shields, although you probably should. They help keep sparks from hitting you, but I never really have a problem with that. Usually these things get so grungy you can't really see what you're doing. So I generally don't use those. You don't want to have any loose clothing or long hair that can get caught up in the spinning parts. Generally what you want to do when you start this thing up is you want to let it get up to full speed. Just like with the lathe, stand aside. If that wheel's going to blow up, it'll blow up on start. Once you have it running, if you turn it off, you go away, you want to come back, wait till the wheels fully stop. Because if you turn them back on while it's still spinning with a little extra torque, you can loosen the nuts. One nut tightens clockwise and one tightens counterclockwise. And I used to have a problem with my nuts on my cheap Woodcraft grinder coming loose a little bit. And Alan Leland said, turn it off when it's still spinning, and I was doing that all the time. So I figured I was just loosening them up from that torque hitting me. Yeah, because it's spinning also. Yeah. But you always want to, and what I usually do if I want to get back to it and it's still spinning from before, is I'll go ahead and just true it up and slow it down like that. Use my diamond diamond
Wheel
dresser, yeah, wheel dresser. Chew it up, and that's great. And you always want to chew your wheels up. You can see they've got some little metal flakes in there now, so I kind of need to get a fresh edge on there. I like to have it flat across the front. I've noticed in some articles people round over the edges and kind of put a crown on it. I don't like to do that. I like to have it perfectly flat, because if I go on and grind a skew on there, I want it flat. Well, I like this is a $40 plus wheel dresser from Craft Supplies. I really like it. It's got diamonds in the steel. You can get one of those cheaper ones. It's about 25 bucks. It's like a square piece of steel that has diamond on it. Those are all right, but they kind of tend to wear out a lot quicker. Terry Brown ones, these star dressers, they're very aggressive, and they'll make your wheel a bit more aggressive, so it'll sharpen faster. I'm not really keen on those. I have no idea.
He'll get it flat, and then he'll use that just to make it.
Could be like this. George Hatfield likes to use these star dressers also, because they make the wheel much more aggressive. And then one way, if you have the time and want to spend the money, you can buy this. It's a single diamond point, and it slides in there, and this will rest on the wheel, and you walk it back and forth, and just take a little bit at a time.
Is that the one way?
Yeah, this is the one way. My problem with this is it takes me 5 minutes to get it set up, so it's just taking a little bit of the wheel, and then I got to take the wheel, or if I use this guy, it doesn't take me, I just do it. But this is the best way to get it flat. Now, I think it's Geiger. It goes to the symposiums, all original ones. He's developed a little jig that fits on top of this flat plate. I didn't buy one because I don't have a lot of money. But it sits on top of there, and he's got his diamond point at an angle, and it does a really nice job of truing it up. It actually does as good or better than the one-way system.
It's easier to use than the one-way. I got one of them. It's a lot easier to use than that thing.
I like using this guy, so that's what I'll do. And so first thing I'll do is true it up. You want to make sure everything's locked down. I like to use the Wolverine system. And what you see here right now is what comes with it. The flat plate and the bucket. For an extra 50 bucks or so, you can buy the Verigrind jig to do your gouges. And then this sharpening thing, that's probably another 50 bucks. I don't know. I don't remember. I bought it so long ago. I would not buy their skew jig, because then when I get to the skew, I'll show you why you don't need it. So first thing I'm going to do is true my wheels up. So make sure everything's locked in place. I clamp this down onto the jigs, so hopefully it won't come off. And the reason I like the Baldor is it runs so smooth. It doesn't vibrate like the other grinders. And I'll just gently run the dresser across the front of the wheel. You just want to kind of flatten it out and get a fresh bite. And I'll do the same thing with the other wheel. And then we can get started. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go tool by tool, and I'll probably even show you how I use the tools to kind of help you understand why I grind them the way I do. And I'll go ahead and turn that off while I'm not using it. And I'll just go ahead and start out with the spindle roughing gouge. So spindle roughing gouge is an 1.25 inch gouge. It's my favorite tool. It's got the bottom third of a circle, and then it's got about a 1/2 inch flat on either side. I like to grind it flat across the top, and I like to have this corner at 90 degrees. I'm a spindle turner. That 90 degrees comes in handy. If you don't do spindle work, you can grind those wings back if you like. But for when you're doing spindle work, I don't have a piece I can really show you. When I get to using it, I'll show you. But I can take this flat area right there down and get right up next to that bead without having to switch tools with that flat area. I can also use it on its side and have that edge at a 45-degree angle, and do the same planing cut that you would do with a skew without having to switch, and it's not as likely to catch as a skew would be. Although when I get to the skew, I'll show you some fun things that Frank has taught me, and Frank and I have learned, so that he says you'll never get a catch with a skew, but I know better, you still get a catch. Nick Cook was demonstrating for Carolina Woodturners, and he had 6.5 catches during his demo.
Ooh.
And I caught the last one. It was a little one, so I said it was a half a catch.
Okay.
But, anyway, this is pretty easy to sharpen. You can use the flat plate, but I prefer not to. And I like a 40-degree angle on. I like a 40-degree bevel on mine. And all these bevel angles will change according to how you like to use the tool and what you're comfortable with. I think Stuart Batty uses a 40-degree bevel, and his father uses 45 degrees. It's really not that big a deal, but I would not use a 25-degree bevel on this. It's way too aggressive. George Hatfield likes 25 degrees on everything. Obviously, he doesn't turn bowls because you can't turn a bowl very well with a 25-degree bevel. You can't get down into the bottom of it. But anyhow, if you use a flat plate,
You want to explain what you mean by that? 25 degree, 45 degree?
yes, this angle right here, 25 degree would be a lot sharper, and be a whole lot less steel up here at the front. And if you're doing exotic woods and stuff like that, and having a 25-degree angle, it's going to get dull real quick.
Alan, is it safe to say those angles are always relative to the axis of the tool?
Yes.
I don't know about that.
He hit it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. I don't understand axis and relative, but usually what I measure the angle from the top of the flute. I had a guy in capillary Woodturners asked me if this bevel is measured from the top to the bottom. I said, I don't know. I've got a bevel gauge right here. And I've got my favorite center finding jig has a bevel thing on it, and I just stick it in the 40-degree slot. And he said, I don't know whether it measures it from the top or the bottom. It fits in the slot, so it's right. He said, if you want to know, you got to talk to Mike Darlow or one of those people that knows all that technical stuff. I don't really care. And then I got one of these protractors, and I found out it's measured from the top. And I set it at 40 degrees, and I lay it flat in the flute, and I come down, and if I see any daylight off the toe or the heel, the toe is the sharp part, the heel is the dull part, then I know I'm not there. And I've been teaching enough so that it's dead on at 40 because I always have to check it, show students how I do it. So I'm always checking it. But if I didn't teach, this could be 2 or 3 degrees, even 5 degrees one way or the other, and I'd never know it until I put a bevel gauge to it. Generally, I don't ever check my tools anymore except when I'm teaching. So this is dead on at 40. So if I want to keep it at 40, I can just lay this flat plate up here and change the angle of it. So when I look through the side, I don't see any light between the heel and the toe, and I've matched the bevel angle. Now, if you want to stick your head down and look, you don't want to stick it on this side. You stick it on that side away from the spinning wheel. Otherwise, you always remember that one wheel's sharpen your earlobes, get your hair caught in there, break your neck. Whatever happens when you get your hair caught in.
I don't worry about that.
Yes. Yeah, you don't have to worry about it. I have to worry about it. My hair keeps growing too long. And I like to use the bucket because it's a whole lot easier than the flat plate. Because with a flat plate, you have to make sure you keep it flat on the plate. And a lot of times when you're rocking it back and forth, you have a tendency to lift it off the plate. And the little bucket, as long as you have a fairly round handle here, you can set in the bucket. Same idea. I look at the side, see if there's any light coming over. I don't see any. And then what I'll do is I'll just touch it to the grinder and make a little grind and see how close I was. And I'm a little bit too far out, so I'm too far in, backed it out a little bit. Now the real key to this is I need to be grinding at or above the most sticky out part on that wheel. As long as I'm above that round part, the wheel is going underneath the steel. When I get below it, it wants to take it and flip it. A lot of times you get grit in this bucket, and this thing that locks it in is an oval. And sometimes it'll slip or your set screw will come loose. You're going to be grinding along, and the bucket will be backing out, and then you get below center, and it'll slam down and it'll bust your fingers.
And your wheel.
And it generally doesn't bust the wheel, but it does some damage to the wheel. So just in case I'm not paying attention, I hold it lightly in my fingers so that if it does slam down, it pulls out with my fingers. I never want my fingers between the tool and any part on the grinder, just in case something goes wrong. And I don't need a lot of pressure on the wheel, just enough to hold it on the wheel. And what I'll do is I'll grind one end, roll it over, grind the other end, and then I'll blend them in the middle. If I roll it over too far like this, I'll round that corner off. I want to bring it up until it hits that corner, but my flute is not perpendicular to the ground. If I got it perpendicular, I round that corner off. Now, Frank is standing over there. He had to teach a class at Swing School one time, and he wanted to borrow my roughing gouge. And I let him borrow it, and it came back around like a coal gouge. I don't think I used any four-letter words, but I did say, Frank, that's the last time you borrowed my tool. And he goes, why? I said, because I use that corner. But he doesn't do spindles, so I didn't quite know how handy that tool is.